Hello and welcome back to Between the Hashes, our weekly college football prediction show. I'm your host, Matt Keim, coming to you from Los Angeles, California. And today we are going to be talking about a ranked SEC matchup between a surprising team, the Tennessee Volunteers, and a team with hopes for the future, the Florida Gators. Both teams are kind of in a rebuild phase, and I'm going to start with the Tennessee aspect here. They are coming off of a mild upset. They were actually favored in the game, but a mild upset over a higher-ranked Pitt team at Pittsburgh, and they have gotten off to a somewhat surprising 3-0 start. Granted, two of their opponents have been Ball State and Akron, so not that surprising, but they've been off to a good start, and their offense has looked really good under second-year quarterback Hendon Hooker and second-year coach Josh Heupel, formerly from UCF. Also, their AD, Danny White, is another UCF expat, so we have a lot of ex-UCF people showing out this year. Shout out to Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma. So far, Hendon Hooker has gotten off to a really hot start, throwing for almost 850 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions on this year so far, and that doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. Now, Tennessee's a bit of a hard team to get a read on just because they haven't really played anybody outside of Pitt. And while Pitt was a good win, Pitt's starting quarterback was knocked out halfway into that game, so But then again, they beat Ball State by almost 50 points. They beat Akron by over 50 points. So they've taken care of business when they've needed to. They went on the road against a ranked team and got a win when they needed to. And so you can't really poke holes in their schedule other than say they've really only been tested once. They're coming off of a 7-6 year. This is the second year under Josh Heupel. The recruiting has gotten way better this year. They had the 11th ranked class over the 22nd ranked class last year. But recruiting has never really been Tennessee's problem. They've just been kind of like, there's always been just a lot of drama around that program, both on and off the field. From throwing things at Lane Kiffin and his return to Neyland Stadium, to Jeremy Pruitt's disaster of a tenure that they might still be getting sanctioned from. It's just, there's a lot of drama, and so far Josh Heupel has stabilized things a little bit there, and we'll see if they can continue. I don't think this team is at the level just yet that they're going to be competing with like the Alabamas of the world, but they're definitely a program that's trending in the right direction. And they have a good offense, and their defensive numbers have been solid, if not great. They have a better run defense than they do pass defense, giving up less than 90 yards a game on the ground, and that's the side that they're going to need against this matchup against Florida. Now, Florida started the season with a surprising upset win over then 7th-ranked Utah, and then they shot way up in the rankings. People were hyping up Anthony Richardson. They're calling him AR-15. And they were hyping him up as like a potential Heisman candidate after, and again, it's just after one game. And I, at the time, thought the hype was a little over the top, which is why I picked Kentucky to beat them. That said, Anthony Richardson is a very good athlete, but he's still kind of putting it together as a whole quarterback. Nothing exemplifies this more than the fact that Florida has yet to throw a passing touchdown this season. They've scored off of interception returns. They've scored quite a bit on the ground. Anthony Richardson himself has run for 3 touchdowns this year, but they have not thrown for a touchdown pass. Anthony Richardson's passing numbers so far on the year are 41 of 77 for just over a 50% completion rating, 423 yards, which is almost exactly half of what Hooker has thrown for, and 4 interceptions. The reason why I'm highlighting this is that he's going to need to step up in the air against this Tennessee team. Tennessee's defense is going to be somewhat stout on the ground, especially against a team that's going to want to run as much as Florida is. And so, can Anthony Richardson step up as a passer? Remains to be seen. In all fairness to Anthony Richardson, he is only just a redshirt sophomore, and this is his first real year starting. And Florida was kind of had a turbulent time in the time he's been there. Dan Mullen, while being a successful offensive coach and getting some decent results out of Florida, left in a very acrimonious, public, and messy way. And I can't imagine that was the easiest locker room environment while he was there, especially towards the end. We have a new coach, Billy Napier, in his first season. Off to a 2-1 run start for Florida, The man led Louisiana Lafayette, of all teams, to 3 straight 10-plus win seasons. That's hard to do. And so I imagine that Florida will put it together, but I think some of the hype around Florida has been wanting them to put it together now, and I don't think they're quite there yet. Florida, since their upset win over Utah, they lost at home by double digits to Kentucky, and they probably should have lost to South Florida last weekend. That game certainly would have gone to overtime had the South Florida holder not dropped a basic snap on what would have been a game-tying field goal. And so I just have a hard time having too much confidence in Florida right now. I definitely think that, like Tennessee, both programs are definitely pointed in the right direction. I just think that we hyped probably both of them, but definitely Florida way sooner than they kind of needed to be. And as a result, I think Tennessee wins this game at home. I think Hooker and that offense are just going to be too much for Florida to handle, especially if the game turns into a shootout. The line is 10.5 as of the time of this recording. I think Tennessee wins. I think Tennessee covers. And I think Tennessee gets off to a good start going into October. Welcome back to our lightning round. There's a couple other games I want to talk about, and you have to listen. Clemson, Wake Forest. As of the time of this recording, Clemson's only favored by a touchdown. Star quarterback Sam Hartman has returned under center for Wake Forest after dealing with blood clot issues all offseason, and so he should have the ability to keep the game close. But honestly, I think Clemson just takes care of business against a ranked Wake Forest team. Arkansas at Texas A&M. While yes, Texas A&M righted the ship a little bit this past weekend with a win over Miami, they still have a lot of the same issues despite a quarterback change, and it's just hard to have a lot of confidence against them, especially against an Arkansas team that seems to be on the upswing. I think Arkansas goes into Kyle Field and gets the win here. We have Ohio State opening up Big Ten play against a Wisconsin team coming off of a pretty bad upset loss against Washington State. I think Ohio State takes care of business at home and probably covers. USC at Oregon State. This was almost my underrated game of the week. I think this should be a good test for USC, but I just think the inherent talent on the roster is too much for Oregon State to handle, despite the fact that Oregon State's coach is actually really good, and he's been doing some really good things at that program. I just think it'll be USC's talent and Lincoln Riley's attack will be too much for Oregon State and the Beavers to handle. And now that brings us to our underrated game of the week. While I realize there is another undefeated matchup happening in the Pac-12, I'm actually going to get a matchup that typically has more implications for March than it does for November. But nevertheless, here we are. Kansas against Duke. I never thought I was going to be talking about these teams in a football-based show, but here we are. Kansas is kind of an interesting story. Their coach, Lance Leopold, who is best known for a run as Wisconsin Whitewater from Division III's coach, and then he was Buffalo and the Max coach for a long time, has Kansas off to a 3-0 start. While that might not seem significant, it's their first time having this kind of a start to the season since 2009. So they have not won more than 3 games in the season since 2009, and even then they won 5 games that year. Kansas hasn't had a winning season since 2008, in which they went 8-5. They've won 3 bowl games in 4 appearances this entire century, the most recent of which was in 2008 under Mark Mangino. It's safe to say that Kansas has been beyond bad as a football program. And while I don't think Kansas is going to go on a tear in the Big 12, especially as they have to play Oklahoma, Texas, Baylor, Oklahoma State, those teams, I don't think that this undefeated start's going to continue for too much longer. It's a good story, and it'll be very impressive if this team can even manage to get to a bowl game. They're already halfway there, and I'm going to be rooting for it to happen. Duke is also breaking in a new coach with Mike Elko, and we'll see where that goes, but it's kind of funny to see both of these teams undefeated this far into the season. I think Kansas gets the win and goes off to a 4-0 start, so Rock Chalk Jayhawk. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on YouTube at Ampire, that's A-M-P-I-R-E Media. Follow us for more updates on the Washington Commanders as they get ready to face Carson Wentz's old team in the Philadelphia Eagles this weekend. And follow us for more updates on the Washington Capitals with All's Caps, hosted by former Capitals defenseman Carl Alsner and AP hockey writer Steve Wino. Follow us on Empire Media or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks, guys, and enjoy the game.